to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are live and we are back here on a Tuesday night for you all. Hope you are enjoying your evening. Thanks for making us a part of your evening, Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Live all over on all platforms known to man, Roku, iHeartRadio, and all social media platforms. We've got ourselves a show tonight. John Frisch of Locked On Angels is going to be joining with us, plus Jess, Belmosto for Locked On Flames, talking about the Calgary Flames, the outlook of the NHL off-season free agency. It's going to be a heck of a ride from here. Boy, we got a lot going on here, at least for today and even for the rest of this week. So many interviews all around the corner. I know tomorrow is going to be a great one, Juneteenth. As we know, the government holiday as well. I'm excited about that. Glad to at least have one day off to kind of recover and really enjoy the day. So there's a lot really to talk about. I'll tell you exactly how my experience was in Coors Field here, just about the bottom half of the hour. But I do want to end up getting to this. So first and foremost, congratulations to the Boston Celtics for winning the NBA Finals title. There's a lot really to kind of explain about this. I will explain a little bit more on Dallas's end here after a break. But the one thing that I thought which was really interesting, because nobody could basically make up for what the Boston Celtics are and what they have become. And could we basically see this potentially become more than just one championship? The Boston Celtics definitely had arguably one of the best groups this year. They were the best team in the NBA all year, all season long. And it paid off in the end with a title. Finally, with this particular group, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. One thing to really consider is the Boston Celtics have gone through a mass of messes all throughout their organization. And sometimes that was just messes that didn't even, they shouldn't have even been in. Or some of it just kind of happened without anybody noticing. So the thing that's significant about the Celtics, and you kind of go back to, because the last time this had happened where they won a championship on June 17th this year was back in June 17th of 2008. Yep, the Boston Celtics won the NBA Finals title with Kevin Garnett and so many other really good players. Paul Pierce ends up winning a title. It was a great team. It was the Big Four. One thing to really kind of understand about Boston's culture, because again, Many people are either happy, excited, and glad for the Celtics to win the championship. Others are basically bitter. There is nobody else who feels bad about the Celtics winning the championship than the Los Angeles Lakers. They always do, and they always have. And the problem with what we've seen for the Lakers, and which is why the Celtics, they took a massive trump this year. Because the Lakers, unfortunately, they are probably going to end up going with J.J. Redick as their head coach, and the head coaching search has been a mess. It's been a circus. Nobody even wants to coach that. And at the same time, LeBron is getting older. I would also say he's kind of complaining more and all the rest of this stuff. But he's also in a mogul stage. He wants to play with his son, Bronny. But there is all sorts of other stuff that's happening around in the Lakers. Anthony Davis can't seem to stay healthy majority of the time. Neither will he end up taking neither will he take the reins to be a great star. He won't do it. And then I have to basically settle for little to no future for this organization. Lakers on the opposite end, while as the Boston Celtics are rising. And listen, the Western Conference, let's be honest with you, with everything that's basically happened in the Western Conference for the Dallas Mavericks, first of all, the Denver Nuggets, we know, had a great roster, but the problem of it is they kind of got a little overzealous and at the same time did not expect a lot of the talent, including Anthony Edwards, who could potentially be the face of this league. The other thing is, teams held for some key players was a huge takeaway. Everything else, this is kind of what it is. I'm sorry to have to basically burst everybody's bubble from here, but I, as somebody as America's honesty mind, this is what it is.
I know.
I know for a fact that the Celtics, they were thinking about this very, very big, like so quickly, but this is what it is. So I don't know how you basically do it. I don't know how you really, I don't really know how you ultimately kind of put all this up together. But ultimately, the Celtics, what they've learned from the time against the Golden State Warriors to this point now, they had Porzingis, they had Al Horford, and they had a bunch of really good stars. And especially with Derek White, you had shooters all around. And this is what led up to this moment. And it is a proud, happy moment. Now, I will say it once more, and I've said it before here up on the show, because I did a challenge. If you took Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you separated them from this organization and made them individually, who would you build around for the next 5 years? I said Jaylen Brown, because the fact of the matter is, and he was NBA Finals MVP. The reason of it is, I like Tatum, but all I get is offense. I barely got defense. Sure, I'll get some passing. Sure, I'll get some of this and that. But Jaylen Brown is much more vocal. He also plays very physical, and he plays a very good defensive structure. I mean, that's why, in the end, when they ended up trading away Marcus Smart, it didn't matter. They got a couple bigs out of free agency and in via trades. They also ended up getting really, really good, offensive pieces, that guys that could come off the bench and could basically play. That's what they got. So I know what a lot of you are thinking and how that this basically could go about. But now the question is, I do not even want to hear the conversation of a dynasty. This is one championship with this group between Tatum and Brown. If you gave me 2-3 more championships, we may call it a dynasty. But Boston is interesting because I don't know, really, truthfully, what I am going to be getting for this organization for the next couple of years. But I'm very glad they won a championship. I'm very glad that at least the coach, Joe Mazzulla, he stepped in at a time when they had Ime Udoka. He did a lot of personal stuff that he should never have fooled around with in the organization. He's gone. He's kicked out. But when Joe Mazzulla came in, this was a lot of turmoil. That's initially what was going on with the Celtics. But then eventually they turned the clock and it basically worked for them. So I'm happy for the Celtics, but I know not a lot of people are. But you know what? Deal with it. Because in the end, if you want to be the better team, whether in the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference, you just got to get better. And look, nothing to take away from Dallas, but Kyrie didn't show up. And it seemed like they utilized so much of their energy from the previous series. And maybe they did because they had no adjustment whatsoever. So I'm happy for them. They deserve a championship at the end of the day. And that is what is most important. So, again, call it what you want, whatever. But my big takeaway is I think this was the best team in the NBA all season long, all the way up to the postseason, and this is what worked. So I'm happy. A lot of people should understand that. So, interestingly enough, who knows what we'll get next season? But hopefully, who knows if the Celtics, because right now the Eastern Conference, it's weak, and they took full advantage of it. So, good thing at least that the Celtics, they were able to manage through it. And I know a lot of people were saying that, they took the easy road because a lot of players, star players, ended up getting hurt at the worst time. Sure, that may be true, but even they showed up against, Dallas, where Doncic was just getting mobbed. He suffered an injury that he was still lingering on, +2. He's got to start getting into game shape. We've been screaming this now for years. So, however that they're going to deal with this, it's going to be really interesting in the long run. Good stuff. Jess Belmosto down, right around the corner. Also, John Frisch as well. Super excited for at least these interviews here tonight. But, yeah, I had a great time. First time at Coors Field. Absolutely a beautiful ballpark. I could not complain. And it's funny because when you look at baseball these days, and a polarizing star, and that's what I'll discuss about it, because I just think this Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese thing is so comical, and it doesn't make any sense because this is sports. Sports is meant to be competitive, whether men's or women's. It's meant to be competitive. I'll explain a lot about that because I just am my experience, just Shohei Ohtani is just great. It's different when you watch him in person than when you do on the television because you just see exactly how he plays and at the same time, the rest of this roster. I thought it was great last night, but I will explain a lot more about that coming up next, and we'll be talking a lot more about the NBA Finals. Stanley Cup Final as well. Edmonton finally took away a game. It's 3-1 now with the Florida Panthers in the series. Can they close it up and win their first ever Stanley Cup championship in franchise history? That is definitely the question for sure. But before we even get up to that, let me tell you guys something as well. Just because that both finals are wrapping up this season, It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Yes, the NBA Finals, we've got a champion. Who knows if we've got a champion tonight for the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers for the Stanley Cup Final. But you know what? Major League Baseball is still going on strong. And nobody better to be prepared with all the best betting lines and betting expertises than BetUS.com. BetUS, one of the leading leaders in sportsbook betting for over 30 years. This company's been amazing, one of a kind. Many people have spoke about it. Marcellus Wiley, Michael Vick, many former athletes have also can't stop talking about BetUS. BetUS has you covered on all of your best sportsbook betting lines, whether it's straight or parlay leg bets, whatever you choose from. Plus two, some fantasy matchups as well. I know you guys are getting geared up for the NFL season, so am I. I am going to be very excited about that. But in the meantime, at least I got baseball. Plus two, we've also got some soccer action that's going to be coming up here for you guys. I am excited about that. But BetUS has you covered all baseball season long. When you put $50 down or more in your deposit, you'll get 200% in bonuses with 30 risk-free bets. Okay? That's plenty of pitches for me to basically find my way to hit it out of the ballpark on my parlay leg bets. So definitely get BetUS a try today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sportsway Network.
So I will tell you, I mean, my experience watching the Dodgers and the Rockies last night, I will get more into it, but I mean, it was amazing. Second major league ballpark in my lifetime that I've ever been in. Coors Field was amazing. I thought the people were fantastic there. It was beautiful weather, 80 degrees in Denver, Colorado. But at the same time, I mean, when you watch a polarizing star like that in Shohei Ohtani, you watch him in person, it is very different than when you watch him on the regular television screen. And so the guest that I have, one of the the Super Halo Bros, joining us here today to be discussing upon it, and he knows a thing or two when it comes to watching Shohei Ohtani playing in person. It's absolutely immaculate. So joining me here, John Frisch. I mean, I'm going to explain this a little longer here up on the show, but when you think of a polarizing star like Shohei Ohtani, I mean, look, this whole Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese thing is just, it's so ridiculous, but it's like, first of all, I got a polarizing star when I know I see one. Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, Michael Jordan.
Right.
Just can't help but just respect the fact that they are the plateau of what the sport is going to eventually become. And I'm like, so when I watched Shohei Ohtani last night, I mean, the Dodgers beat the Rockies 9-5. I mean, it was a great time being there. My wife and I enjoyed it. But just something about it, like a polarizing star, to have the ability to have everybody just pull out their phone, find the camera, and just hit record. I mean, everybody, the first at bat all the way to the last. I mean, when you experience watching Shohei Ohtani in the past being a part of this Angels organization, I mean, there's nothing like it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know that you're in for a treat every time Shohei steps on the mound, every time he steps up to the plate. Even, non-Angel fans that came with me to those games when Shohei was a part of the club, man, they're there to see him and to see what he's going to do that day. And pretty much 9 times out of 10, he's doing something amazing. And, it's interesting, the point you're making, Jake, about just the fact that he's a polarizing guy, because when he's not on your team, then it's really difficult to watch sometimes him take your team to town and take them to task, if you know what I'm saying. So really it comes down to every moment that he put up with the Angels was special, and it's great to see him having the success that he's having with the Dodgers. There's some people that think that Angel fans will be bitter that he's not in the organization anymore and that he's not a halo and whatnot, but I'm happy to see the guy have success elsewhere, except when he plays against the Angels, because I'm a fan of the Angels at the end of the day, right?
It's kind of funny because, I mean, the fact is like the vibe I got from Shohei was he was never going to leave Los Angeles. I mean, why would you? It's a big money market town. I mean, they love their baseball. And in the end, I just think with what Shohei Ohtani brings, he brings a lot of international money. It's new money that's coming in. So a lot of this, I mean, the promotions, all of it, I mean, Magic Johnson is sitting on fat ones every single night. So it's just like he's doing, but he knows the LA market, which is incredible. So just shifting on, because I know we're getting into the hard-nosed questions. And for somebody who has covered the Angels for a long time, look, I'm watching the Stanley Cup final, okay, and I am very happy for Connor McDavid to finally get there. Right. And what I said on this show is my only wish is I would see Mike Trout eventually in the World Series, because for God's sakes, it feels like they are both identical type players who, like, as domestic stars, they have paved the way for what the sport really is. Now, I know McDavid's Canadian, but at the same time, they've moved the needle of what baseball really is about. I mean, and so, I mean, I just feel bad for Mike Trout because the injuries are starting to plague the Angels organization. I mean, good God, can Artie Moreno just sell this organization already? I want to see better. I mean, when you see this from inside out, I mean, you're thinking how I'm thinking. I got to get Mike Trout in there somehow, some way, right?
Yeah, when it comes to Mike Trout and the Angels and hoping to see him in the playoffs, I can tell you it's not going to happen anytime soon. And it might be, he might be wise beyond his years before he finally gets back to the playoffs and, this team gets to be good enough to make the playoffs again. And you're right. It all comes back to ownership. It all comes back to decision-making from the front office. It all comes back to Artie Moreno. You mentioned Shohei Ohtani and the amount of money he brings in. Artie Moreno said no to that. They can't see past the end of their nose on the front of their face because they don't see. Look, you can debate whether bringing back Ohtani was a good idea or a bad idea. Like, he's only DHing. You don't know the future of his arm and whatnot. But at the same time, if you call yourself a businessman like Artie Moreno, then the money you're leaving on the table if you don't bring him back. The $700 million contract with all the deferred payments and whatnot, that's going to pay for itself by the end of this season, if if I'm being honest. But back to Mike Trout. Look, as an Angel fan, I appreciate the loyalty. When he signed the extension in 2019, you felt pretty good about where the team was. They really just needed some pitching. They still had Pujols, who obviously never had the level of success that he had in St. Louis with the Angels, but he was still hitting milestones. They had Ohtani in his second year. Of course, he had the pitching injury that first year he was there. They had Andrelton Simmons, who was playing the best offensive baseball of his life, in addition to his incredible glove at shortstop. So, Justin Upton wasn't quite washed up yet either, but the merry-go-round of, we have this GM and this manager and this GM and this manager. There's never been a plan, Jake. And it just doesn't seem like there has been a plan until this year, where they kind of fall butt backwards into a plan because they have a losing record right now. And it's, hey, look at the way these young guys are developing. Well, look, my brother and I, who host Locked On Angels and talk about it all season long, we knew that this was not a go for it year. We knew that this was a development year. We wanted to see O'Hoppe and Neto and Shawnuel and Adele and Moniak and the young starting pitchers get their chance to develop over the course of a full season. And we knew that it probably wasn't going to look pretty as they did it. But the fact is that they've never had a plan, and they kind of fell into one this year because the record's not great. And so you hear the dialogue from Ron Washington change from over the offseason of, hey, we're going to run down the West. We're going to be about it. And now all of a sudden it's, well, they're learning and growing and they're developing. And so the company line has changed. And we all kind of knew that coming into this season. But for some reason, the front office just wants to make sure that they dangle that carrot in front of Angels fans and say, well, don't go anywhere. We still want you here. We're going to win. We promise. But we know as long as Artie Moreno's in charge, they're not going to have a winning team out there. They might accidentally field a winning team if these young guys continue to grow. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Mike Trout, I appreciate his loyalty. If he sticks it out the rest of his contract, there will be some winning seasons in store for Mike Trout. Might not be prime Mike Trout, might not be the Trout that redefined the game of baseball, but I think there will be winning seasons ahead for him if he sticks with his team and the young guys continue to grow.
Yeah, and this is the one thing, because it so pains me every time to just basically say this, because again, I've grown up a baseball guy my entire life. And so, but when I see an organization that I just get confused, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the plan is in place. The thing of it was, and to go upon this with the veterans, because the Angels have had a track list now, I would say, for about close to, 12 years at least. You had the Pujols contract, you had the Josh Hamilton contract, the CJ Wilson contract, and then all of a sudden they started getting all of these other veterans. I mean, 2014, they did make a serious postseason run, but it wasn't enough to really cap off against the Kansas City Royals. So then, to go upon with this subject, Anthony Rendon, who won a World Series in 2019 with the Washington Nationals, signs a massive contract with the Angels, and this just has not panned out. He's been on the news, he's been fighting with fans, and then at the same time, do I even have a care in the world at all to basically play baseball? Because look, it's one thing if it's just a recreational sport for all of us, but when it's your job and it's your duty, look, I'm not going to tell my boss, hey, I'm just going to give you 60% today. No, right. I need 110%. Where are you right now with this contract with Anthony Rendon?
Look, it's Artie Moreno's own money, and it's his own fault, because they've never signed a player of that level out of necessity. It's always been the star player that just came off of a great offensive season. And look, at the time, the Angels needed a third baseman, and Anthony Rendon was a good signing for them. But the fact is, you had Garrett Cole out there who ended up with the Yanks. There was a fan of ours who mentioned a story about Billy Epler flying out to meet with Zach Wheeler, and he was told, no, turn around and come home. We're going to meet with Anthony Rendon. Can you imagine Zach Wheeler in that starting rotation for the same contract he's got with the Phils right now? would have made a huge difference with this Angels organization. Of course, with our luck, he probably would have had Tommy John and probably would have had some elbow issues. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
the fact is that Zach Wheeler, Garrett Cole, those are the names that the Angels have needed over the years.
Yeah.
You end up with your Hamiltons and your Pujolses, and I guess I'll fight people on CJ Wilson. And he's not as bad as everybody kind of lumps him in with that Pujols contract. But I think, you know what, at the time they needed starting pitching and he was the best one. And that to me is a good signing because it was out of an area of need. But then you think about the fact that they had Greinke in 2012 and they brought in Hamilton rather than putting that money towards Greinke, or maybe bringing back Torrey Hunter, a guy who was really loyal to the Angels. And he's now part of the system as an assistant to the GM, which is great. But all that to say, going back to Anthony Rendon, the Angels needed a third baseman like that. But the idea that he's not played nearly enough games, he's not nearly worth his contract. He's got the nonchalant attitude. It turns off a lot of fans. Look, we had a lot of sympathy for him on our show the first few times that he got injured. And last year, he didn't really do himself any favors with some of the comments that he made. This year, it does seem like he's been trying really hard. I think it took somebody like Ron Washington to kind of snap him back into reality and fix some of those attitude issues, because I think last year with Phil Nevin in charge, the whole clubhouse was kind of a zoo. It was Nevin's first year as a major league manager, full-time major league manager, not an interim. And all that to say, he was playing some good ball. I know he got off to a really bad start, but he's playing some good ball before he went on the injured list. Was it $38 million ball? No, absolutely not. And I don't think we'll ever get $38 million worth of good baseball out of Anthony Rendon. And so the Angels are just going to have to write out that contract. And I think that's part of the hesitation why the Angels haven't signed big name contracts. But again, it goes back to the way Artie likes his superstars, and pitchers don't play every game, and pitchers don't sell tickets the way a Mike Trout or a Shohei or a Pujols or a Rendon might sell tickets. So at the end of the day, it was a signing that, yeah, you could argue they needed a third baseman, but there were more pressing needs at the time, and now it's kind of come back to bite them.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, I feel like the Artie Moreno effect with, him being so hitter friendly, all the other teams from the outside looking in are like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
I'll just take your relief pitcher, and then I'll beef up my bullpen because I'm going for a World Series run. So,
right.
But I just think, watching Ron Washington, because ultimately we have not had a more pivotal manager than when we had Mike Scioscia. I mean, when I watched the guy manage, the guy was great. He was what Angel baseball was meant to be. And at the time when 2002 happened, I mean, against a great Giants team, I mean, it just kind of set the tone. It changed everything. Yeah. So now you fast forward. I mean, the Joe Maddon, they tried this idea. It did not work out for the best. I felt like his time was already kind of up by the time he was out of Chicago. And respectfully, we still respect him. But now you look at Ron Washington, and I loved him in Texas, and I loved him everywhere that he's been. But do you think this is ultimately bringing in a guy like that? I've watched his interviews, and I think he's great. But does the organization themselves, are they patient enough that they want to see this thing develop? They want to get better at this. Is he going to be around here for the long run?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, we've loved him everywhere he's been, and players have loved him everywhere he's been. You look at what he was able to do for Marcus Semien and turn him into, a Gold Glove caliber up the middle infield guy versus who he used to be. You still see Freddie Freeman with the Dodgers doing the Washington drills before each game. And so he has a lasting impact everywhere that he's been. And I think that that's the main reason why he was brought in, is because there's no better guy right now to be around the young core of the Netos and the Ohapis than Ron Washington, because he's going to have a lasting impact on their careers. Now, is he the best manager, game manager, decision maker? Not always. No, I don't think that he's, and even going back to the World Series in Texas and not making that substitution, with out in right field where it could have been a much different ending to the Cardinals Rangers game. But look, this is the way I see it, Jake, is before the season even got started, I had a feeling of, is Artie Moreno quiet quitting, right? In that sense that his team president, the guy who has turned this team into a marketing machine rather than a baseball team, John Carpino, his contract's up at the end of the year. Perry Manassian's contract is up at the end of the year. Ron Washington has a 2-year deal with the possibility of a third, but giving Ron Washington a 1-year deal is insulting. So 2 is the best you can do. So there's a lot of expiring contracts. There's a lot of key decision makers who might not be in the organization next year. And so, yeah, you're right. I wish I could answer that question. The big decision here is the front office going to let Perry Manassian, for all his flaws and for all the things that he has done well, are they going to let him stick around after this year because his contract's up? Are they going to be patient with Ron Washington enough to see this young core develop, or are they going to have a second losing season next year and say, well, he's been no good? Because it took a few years for him in Texas to turn it around. And so you kind of wonder who's going to bat for Ron Washington. And this year was special because Perry Manassian, for the first time, actually got to pick his manager. You know, you mentioned Joe Madden. He was here before Perry Manassian. Perry Manassian didn't pick a manager because once Joe was dismissed, Phil Nevin filled that role. They kept Phil Nevin around because there were the sell the team rumors were happening, and Artie and family put that statement out there. And so they didn't pick a manager because they're like, well, maybe a new regime will want to pick their own. And so he was kind of a holdover. So for Perry to pick his manager for this season, I think picking Ron Washington was the right move. You know, Perry has not been great on the free agent market throughout his tenure, but at the same time, I think from taking the Angels from 0 to something in the minor league system, I think that Perry deserves that credit. And, you know, he's not been the best GM in the world, but the previous GMs didn't do much for our minor league system. And so I'm looking forward to the development coming out of there. But I don't know if the Angels front office has enough patience to see this through. I don't know if Perry Manassian has been able to convince Artie Moreno that this is the right pathway forward, because it's the only thing they haven't done yet is try to develop a young core. It's been years since they've developed their own young core. And you could say probably going back to the early 2000s before Artie got here, and they had the young core that won the World Series. So yeah, at the end of the day, it remains to be seen if the front office and ownership will have the patience to let Ron Washington do his job, and if Perry Manassian sticks around next year to see that job through.
Yeah, and you know, especially with right now with what we've got. I mean, yeah, the youth movement with Joe Adell and Logan O'Hoppe and a lot of other, and Taylor Ward, a bunch of other young kids right now that are developing in this roster. But as we've had the College World Series currently going on, and I know that the MLB player draft is going to be another important thing. I've been screaming this for years as much as you have. We've got to develop pitching. They've got to develop a starting rotation, because the farm system right now just doesn't seem to be so strong right now in the pitching department. So when you think of arms as far as for some prospects, are there any that you kind of have you looked at that you kind of have more insight to, like, we got to get this guy because we need to start moving that needle right now? Because, I mean, I watched a time when I can't even believe that, you know, the Angels held on to Jared Weaver for so long and couldn't address the starting rotation. So could this be now the needle they move?
Yeah, I think it has to be. And you know, in particular, with some of the players they have in the system, there's some guys in there that I am looking forward to. Caden Dana comes to mind. He is down in AA right now, having a great year. We got some good looks at him in spring training. I am not in any rush to see him come up and be part of this rotation, because that's what the old Angels would do. And that's what the Angels of the last couple of years would do. And so there's no reason or urgency to rush his development and bring him up. I am looking forward to seeing him once he gets there. But the fact is that the Angels, what did I do the other day? I went through for one of our shows on Lockdown Angels and checked in on the all pitcher draft. And I would say that about 10 out of those 20 picks were viable major league arms, or at least showing progress toward that. Now, the Angels did get rid of 2 of them last year when they traded to Colorado and they traded to the White Sox. They, of course, traded Kai Busch, who is tearing it up for the White Sox Double-A right now, is somebody who the Angels could certainly have used if they hadn't gotten rid of him last year for that Giolito Lopez trade. But I digress. The fact is if you look at the upcoming draft, I think they're actually in a position where they have 4 top 100 picks, and they are in a position where I can't really think of a good position player other than maybe like Nelson Rada, who is still very young, that is like the next big thing. And so if they get somebody who's going to be, an anchor at third base for the next so many years, I think that that's a great decision. I know Nolan Schanuel is their first baseman, but he's not really I say this tongue in cheek, he's not really the power guy. However, his power numbers have been better than his on-base numbers this year, which is ironic. But I think there's always room in this organization for good pitching. And the fact that they have 4 top 100 picks this year, I think it's going to be the difference maker. And it's also going to be interesting to see how Perry Minasian and his team handle it, because they're not picking out of, hey, we got to get Ohtani to the playoffs. We need the most ready guy right now. We need to bring this guy up like we did with Neto or like we did with Schanuel so that we can get to the playoffs. They don't have to do that this year. They can be patient with their picks. They can be patient with the guys that they're going to get and let them cook down in the minor leagues and be wise with the top 4 100 picks that they have.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what, though. I mean, I think I just heard an entire book put together. It's called The Book of Optimism, which is what Artie Moreno really needs to read up, because
right.
I mean, to have the hope and optimism with, the Angels is one that I've always hoped for all Angel fans, because it really needs to start moving, and so I'm excited for a lot of these youngsters. I think we're getting a lot of really good guys growing organically in this system, and hopefully when everything is collectively put together. I mean, we just watched the NBA Finals and the Celtics win it, and when everything goes collectively right with with an organization, you just see it just become this big moment. Like it was meant to be that. So that's what I'm waiting for the Angels at some point. But I'm really excited, and hopefully we do see the Angels become better than being the shell of what they've been now in the last 20 years. So hopefully we see that, and hopefully, some greater things are up and on the horizon. But John, appreciate you taking the time, man. Where can everybody get locked on and show off their halos for the LA Angels?
Let's go. Yeah, you can find myself at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow the show at Locked On Angels on Twitter. And of course, you can find the show on YouTube. You can find it on Amazon Fire TV. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, of course, on the audio side. So Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Just search Locked On Angels, and my brother Mike and I will be there for you, talking Angels baseball 5 days a week. And we put out our shows so that, if you're headed to work early in the morning, we're there for you. So we'll join you for your early morning drive or your cup of coffee, and we'll be glad to have you jump into the show with us. That'd be great.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And then, like I said, I mean, I watched Shohei Ohtani last night. I thought it was fantastic. I've yet to see Mike Trout up in person, and I've heard a lot of great things about Angels Ballpark. So that's on my radar, in my bucket list. So I am waiting to see what it's going to be like watching him play in the Big A. But appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you later on the flip side.
Sounds good, Jake. And when you're out here at the Big A, hit me up and we'll go catch that game together.
You got it, man. You got it. Absolutely love it. But like I said, I mean, baseball is just, it's fantastic. But again, when you watch a polarizing star like Shohei Ohtani like that, and especially when you watch a domestic star like Mike Trout, I mean, it is absolutely incredible. But shifting on, because we know tonight, will fate be in store Will the Florida Panthers end up winning the first ever Stanley Cup championship, or will the Edmonton Oilers have to spoil things and make another game? But we're going on the other side of Alberta, who basically covers the Calgary Flames. I know things are heating up from there because they do not like those Oilers whatsoever. You watch the Battle of Alberta, they absolutely just despise each other. But we love the rivalry. Joining us, Jess, Belmosto joining us. Yes, I know it's not really a beautiful sight to see when you have the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup final, but like I've said, I've been very happy with Connor McDavid at the end of this thing. But I think about the trade, Jonathan Huberdeau and Matthew Tkachuk. When Matthew Tkachuk, being a part of the Calgary Flames, and before that trade happened, I mean, I loved kind of just the attitude he brought because he was the kind that was coming at you from all angles, whether scoring or whether he was ready to give you a shoulder, And so when you think about that and his time in Calgary and the time he could potentially now become a Stanley Cup champion, I mean, it's kind of got to feel good, but then at the same time, it's really got to be the fuel of the fire for the Flames to really kind of get better at this point, right?
Absolutely. It definitely feels, I guess, like a double-edged sword because you absolutely despise the Edmonton Oilers with every fiber of your being. But then to see Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett, who was traded a few years before Tkachuk to Florida, in back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, well, your season, you've been hitting the golf course for 2 months now. Like, it's not exactly the warm and fuzzy feeling you want to have. And I hope it motivates the Flames. I mean, they have to find it within themselves to get better. They absolutely have to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this year's offseason is going to be like for the Calgary Flames because, I mean, in the end, I felt like this team was on the right track with Daryl Sutter as head coach, but then things started to change. I mean, you had the initial trade for Jonathan Huberdeau, but I mean, they got a lot of work to do. I mean, they've traded away a couple of pieces. They traded this year Noah Hannafin to the Vegas Golden Knights. So, getting rid of some of the players who I would say were looking for new contracts. They just weren't sure if Calgary was going to pay up for it. But to get some draft capital and to, at the very least, kind of replenish a lot of that, what's kind of the outlook for the Flames moving forward in the offseason? I mean, there's kind of a lot of some positions to address this year, right?
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot to clean up. Brad Treliving, the former general manager, didn't renew his contract last season. So it was Craig Conroy's first time as a general manager, and he had a lot to do. He had 7 pending UFAs. He ended up trading, I think, 5 or 6 of them. And there's just been a lot of noise between choosing a direction. Like, are we going to continue down this path of we think we can be a fringe playoff team, or taking a step back for maybe 3 to 4 seasons and being competitive, especially when our brand new taxpayer funded arena opens?
Yeah. No, it really will be interesting to say the least, because I mean, I look at this roster and I just feel like there is some speed and there is some scoring. When you think of Blake Coleman and Nazem Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau and even Dylan DeBay, I mean, there's some promise at least to this roster. But I mean, the question marks right now, and one player to focus on, is Jacob Markstrom. Since he's been in this organization, we thought there was going to be a needle moving for this team to get better. And unfortunately, it just for his mindset, it hasn't looked like that. And then there's been some trade rumors. What's been the latest status on Jacob Markstrom? Because I just feel like he's not happy there. It feels like he wants a change of scenery. Is that something that should be addressed or will be addressed? And how would that impact Calgary in the goaltending department?
So earlier today, it came out that I guess Jacob Markstrom hasn't officially requested a trade, which, that's kind of reassuring because you don't want to bring back a disgruntled player if you can obviously avoid it. And it sounds like they're going to be trading him ahead of the draft, but Craig Conroy's kind of made it clear that everything that we're doing is going to be behind closed doors. And when the public's meant to know, we'll know. They absolutely mishandled the trade deadline, just fumbling the trade with New Jersey, and it had an impact on Markstrom, and I don't blame him at all. When you do the organization a favor by waiving your no movement clause and agree to go across the continent to New Jersey, it's a lot. And the Flames have their next goaltender in the pipeline with Dustin Wolf, and he's ready to take this step into the NHL. It's just a matter of clearing that log jam with Jacob Markstrom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think about too, because the Pacific Division, it's really getting tougher. I mean, we watch Vegas, we watch Edmonton, we watch the Kings, and multiple other teams that are also building up to make this arguably a very competitive division. So, and I mean, San Jose clearly is in big time rebuild mode. Seattle, I felt like, they made it to as far as the second round last year. And then they just kind of took a fall off the step. I don't know if there's a rebound season in place. We know that there's new coaching regime. But I mean, this could be the opportunity because when they're looking at a lot of their opponents up top, like we've seen from some teams, you saw from Dallas and you saw from a couple of other teams that many teams that are high scoring, like a Colorado, like a Vegas, like a lot of teams, they have to find the right defensemen that are willing to sacrifice their bodies up front when it comes to shots they need to block. And at the same time, they just really have to get precise with their passing. So, I mean, that's kind of safe to say is something that I think Calgary really wants to look for in the offseason this year.
100%. And they were so lucky to have Chris Tanev for as long as they did. That man would probably, leave it all out on the ice. He has, taken pucks to the face. He's blocked hundreds and hundreds of shots. And he's just a great defenseman. And I feel old saying this, but they don't make defensemen like him anymore. Yeah. That he is just a through and through true defensive defenseman. He's not focused on goal scoring. Mackenzie Weegar, who they acquired through the Matthew Tkachuk trade along with Jonathan Huberdeau, has really blossomed, I would say, in the aspect of being willing to block shots and lay it all out there. And he also has an offensive edge to his game, which is even better because, as we've seen, the Flames need to score a lot more goals if they want to win.
Yeah. And one of the names, too, that has definitely popped up with the Calgary Flames, to which Flame fans are big-time fans of, is Andrew Mangiapane. I mean, the guy, I've been excited for the kid, and I think that there has been many moments where I have seen him blossom. I mean, when you look at the development of what the Flames, what their offense really has been based around, Mangiapane at times would just definitely give you clutch shots when you need it, and especially you're down a goal or two, you find ways to get yourself back into the game. I mean, what's the impact felt like for at least for Giappani? Because I'm just hoping that, that is one player they could surround themselves with and still build upon more stars in the near future.
So unfortunately, it does sound like he is going to be traded this season. He is a free agent at the end of next season, so the 24-25 season. And it came out today that it doesn't look like he wants to sign long-term in Calgary. And I mean, I don't entirely blame him. He had a really good start to his career here. And once he signed an extension, it just kind of all went, there was regression compared to his career year in 2021. So, I mean, I would love for him to have a resurgence and just kind of, even add to his trade value if he does decide, ship me out of here come March. That's fine. I think that I've had an absolute pleasure of covering him, and he's a really good guy, does a lot for the community, and I wish that things could have been different for him. And I feel like that's kind of the unfortunate part of most of what's left of this Flames core.
Yeah, no, and hopefully, like I said, I mean, with youngsters, we know that the draft is going to be coming up in Vegas again. And, and there are some really good prospects to keep an eye out for. But hopefully, again, if, come trades, because it's going to be a hefty offseason all the way through at the end of the day, because there's many teams that are basically looking for positions to fill. There's also some players that are looking for new contracts. So it's interesting to see how this hockey offseason really will pan out. But a fun question for you, because, of course, as we're seeing the Edmonton Oilers right now being the team representing Canada, I mean, I talked to one who covered the Canucks. He's like, I'm not a fan of this. But so I love rivalries. I really do. I go back from the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Giants. And even when I covered with, a previous one with the Islanders and the Rangers, when I look at the Battle of Alberta, I've seen it multiple times where even when I watched clips where Zach Cassian would just be going at it every time. When you think of this Flames-Oilers rivalry, I mean, this is one that I feel like really kind of comes down toe-to-toe with each other. And it don't matter at the end of the day. By the time that, from beginning to end, it's a bloodbath waiting to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2020, they had 2 line brawls within a matter of weeks. And it reignited something, I think, within the Flames. And they were kind of on that turning point where they were finally becoming truly competitive. That didn't last long, but the 2 teams met in the playoffs a few years ago. Obviously, Edmonton won that series, but no matter how bad either team is, they go toe to toe. It is a Stanley Cup Game 7. This is they're fighting for their honor and pride for Alberta, and it's absolutely incredible. And being an outsider from Boston, I grew up with Red Sox, Yankees, and the prime, the thick of things, and getting to cover this has been, I mean, a lot more fun because I'm an adult and I understand what's going on. But it's some heavy stuff that both fan bases, they don't take things lightly. It's so fun.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, again, the smack talking, I mean, like I said early on the show, I was talking about it with, the Angel Reese and the Caitlin Clark thing. I mean, look, it's in the prime of the WNBA. I don't understand. I just think mainstream media just doesn't know how to take it. They don't really know how to describe it. But it's you and I, we've watched sports so much that we've seen this before. I mean, you've got the hero and you've got the villain. And I'm I'm okay with that. But, and I'll have mixtures of stars up from, here and there. But it's just I don't really get it. But then, yeah, That's just kind of how it is. It's what brings the beauty of the sport together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like if you're watching sports as a fan and for like pure entertainment rather than going in to produce a show the next day on ESPN that, viewership is going to get you your next multi-million-dollar contract for reactionary and these viral clips. It is so different because, a foul is a foul. Like, it is part of the game. There's competitiveness, believe it or not. These are pro athletes. They've been competitive probably since they could walk. Like, this isn't anything new. And I feel like it just has been blown out of proportion so many different ways. And let's just all remember what we're here for.
Yeah.
Sports.
Yeah, exactly. That's all that we do. I mean, I've been saying it. I've been nabbed the title America's Honesty Mind because I'm trying to find the silver lining behind both stories to kind of give it a balanced, unbiased opinion. And at the same time, I'm getting experiences from many people who cover specific teams and how they feel with it. And so it's such a beauty to even do this for 4+ years running. And so that's why I'm trying to get up there to the top to where, I'm there competing with the cowherds and all these people. And so, but I would say a fun one before letting you go. Born and raised in Vegas my entire life, hockey was never even thought of, even though it had the Thunder, it had the Wranglers, and eventually became the Golden Knights. So I was happy when the time that, and yes, it took 6 years, faster than any other teams that have. I just felt so happy, so proud because as a Vegas native, not a lot of people paid attention so heavily up on hockey. But by the time that they arrived in 2017, organically built, they give back to their programs. They give back to the community, and they gave the community something to believe in. So by the time they won it this past year, it lifted an entire city up to where it was like, I got a chance to witness my hometown win it. Calgary does have a championship on their belt with the old Lanny McDonald finally getting one respectfully. So when you think of hoisting Sir Stanley, I mean, it's such a surreal moment. I said that is the hardest trophy of all major sports to win, to claim, to hoist. So to hoist it, I mean, it's such a surreal feeling, right?
I can only imagine. I mean, even in the playoff run the Flames had a few years ago, it felt so special, and it was so unexpected that, if they made it out of the first round, great. They were going up against the Oilers. Okay, probably knew it wasn't going to be an easy series, but getting eliminated in 5, not great. But the atmosphere, the way that the fans just gathered at the bars, at the viewing parties, at the Saddle Dome, it's incredible. And there's fan bases that, I feel like we always have this conversation, who's the most deserving or who's the least deserving to win the cup. And it's like everyone eventually deserves it. And I think, for the last 34, 35 years, the Flames fans have just been through it. It is generational. And I hope within the next, 10 years, they're able to kind of retool their prospect pool and get better. Because, I mean, they're going to have a new arena soon, and they're going to want to put butts in the seats.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you put in a new arena and you just, it's a one of a kind. I mean, I like I said, I've been to 18 Golden Knights games in my life in T-Mobile Arena. So energizing, and it's so intimidating for other teams. But the atmosphere and the energy is absolutely surreal. And everybody is invested in. So when you get a new arena and, again, the players feel great, the fan base feels stronger, it really does make a huge difference. And, the thing I've said, like before coming on and starting up onto the show, we had our previous guest for the Angels.
Mhm.
I've said that I was happy for Connor McDavid. I really was, because he's such a polarizing star. And we know as a Canadian, like he's the icon of Canadian hockey. And
Right.
to be a part of an organization like Edmonton, when we all watch Wayne Gretzky, I mean, the guy was incredible. So, and like I said, my only wish is I would wish that Mike Trout would be in the World Series, because I feel like the two of them are so just scary identical, because they just are so special in each of their positions and for their respective sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as much as I don't like the Oilers, it is very difficult to root against Connor McDavid as a player. He is just not human. I don't know how he does it, and just the skill level, the dedication. When he had a significant knee injury a few years ago, he did like 1,000 hours of physical therapy that was supposed to take like 6 months in a much shorter period of time, so he could be back ready for the start of the season. And yeah, it's probably not like the best idea, but it just shows his dedication and his commitment to his craft. And he eventually deserves a Stanley Cup. I don't know if that's this year, but I hope in his career he gets to lift it.
Oh man, that would be an absolute surreal moment. I mean, when you get polarizing stars who win a championship, it's just such a higher feeling at the end of the day, and it really does mean a lot even for the organization. But for a career like that, I mean, multiple MVPs, multiple, I mean, the trophy cases are getting higher and higher, but to have that eventually, I mean, to leaving it vacant for so long, that's why I felt bad for Joe Pavelski. I thought he was a great player, but to never win a championship is just so hard. And I'm like, but it's never easy to go through this. I mean, Lanny McDonald went through this. Ray Bork went through this. Multiple players that you knew respectfully, they deserved it. They were hard workers out there that they deserve a chance to hoist Sir Stanley at some point. But Jess, appreciate you taking the time. Where can everybody find you if we're heating things up, especially with a Stanley Cup final, where they can tune in for those Calgary Flames?
Yes, so you can find me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto, and you can find Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. We're still Monday through Friday until I think like the middle towards the end of July. So like I've got you covered from crazy trade rumors to, actual things that are happening. But yeah, you can find me anywhere. And thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Appreciate you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we shall see exactly what the offseason has in store for the Calgary Flames. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a show, though, tonight. I mean, the fact that, when we're talking about polarizing stars, and I thought it was great. We talked about with Connor McDavid. We talked about it with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. So here's my thing about Shohei Ohtani. And when I watched him in person, I was in the stands. And shout out to my really good friend, Kim Becker. Amazing job there in Coors Field. Absolutely great personality. Absolutely love her work. But when I watched that game for the Dodgers and the Rockies, I'm watching everybody pulling out their phones, taking pictures, recording a video. When Shohei Ohtani, first at bat to last at bat, they're just tuned in. They're in it. I know it's kind of hard to sink the moment in because of the generation that we are in. Technology is getting smarter. It's becoming a bigger, better trend. But when you're in that moment, and Shohei Ohtani was badass. I'd watch him hit. I'd watch him spray the ball around. The guy's a one of a kind. And I see a lot of international fans that come from everywhere. It's new money. It's international money. Shohei Ohtani is he's the kind that moves your seat. Like, he's the one that makes you pull out your phone, take a picture, or even just taking a video. I just felt like, from many polarizing stars, from MJ to Kobe to Mike Trout to Connor McDavid and to Shohei Ohtani. And again, this whole conversation with the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese thing is just so comical because we've all seen this. Everybody's trying to paint the picture on Caitlin Clark, even though knowing she's a polarizing star, but even she realizes it. She says the right things at the podium, and even if she's getting people are just getting physical, she doesn't mind it. She grew up with two brothers. So this is all a part of the golden age right now for WNBA. It's the golden opportunity for the sport growth. When you have that, embrace it. Because when I watched Shohei Ohtani last night, I can't help but embrace the fact sports is just so good. I mean, in the ballpark in Coors Field, I mean, Rocky fans knew. They knew when the Dodgers are in town, you're in it for a long one. But, I just think having a moment like that, I thought was absolutely surreal and incredible. And I just, people, if you have not seen Shohei Ohtani in person, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Do it. On the road would probably be better because if you're in Los Angeles, if you're in LA County, and you can afford it, by all means, more power to you. But make it something. Make it a day to just see him in person. Because watching him up on television, it just doesn't feel the same anymore. I'm just like, the fact that I watched arguably one of the best international stars right now in baseball is absolutely it's jaw-dropping. It's amazing. But something I wanted to sum up, because so the Boston Celtics are the NBA Finals champions, and the Dallas Mavericks, unfortunately, their championship run has cut short. And everybody right now, knowing with the Dallas Mavericks, they got a hell of a run. I mean, they came through with battling against the Clippers and OKC and Minnesota. The Dallas Mavericks deserved to be here. But the hardest part is that, first of all, Denver got overzealous. Okay? They had the players. But knowing last year they were the champions, they did not. It didn't seem focused. And Mike Malone was definitely pissed. You saw it on his face. Chris Finch, when I look at what Minnesota is building up right now, I'm excited for this. And you've got a domestic star who could be the face of the league in Anthony Edwards. I loved watching him. Watched him play in the Olympic game. But every single one of these teams in the Western Conference, you already know that they bring a lot of physicality. So part of this, for Dallas, it felt like their gas was worn out. And that happens for a lot of teams. Players get hurt. Players get gassed. They get tired. They can't adjust. It happens. But I just think for Dallas, at the end of the day, Luka Doncic, has a lot of work to do in the offseason. And I think he knows it. He set it up on the podium earlier where he didn't play his best. He takes a lot of accountability for it. But can the accountability be translated into what do you do now? Getting yourself into better shape, because that's the biggest thing right now. 2, they got to give him somebody on a consistent basis. I know people speak about Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie disappeared in this series, the most important series. And so when I think of Luka, Luka, I know, is great at offense. He struggles up on defense, but maybe fix the defense. And the other thing is, too, I mean, Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, they were so marginalized through this series. Boston had every single answer to it. And there was nothing that they could do to possibly change this thing around. So I just think that, Dallas, they're on the right track. But look at this. You lost Porzingis. You lost Jalen Brunson. These were three pivotal guys that could have been difference makers in Dallas. And the funny thing is like I've watched Jalen Brunson have an amazing postseason with the Knicks that he deserves another star. And many people know that, like, well, Julius Randle's coming back. OG Anunoby, is he coming back? The thing about it is with the Dallas Mavericks is I do not condemn them for this. But let this be a learning curve for Luka Doncic. Let this be a wake-up call for Kyrie Irving, because we know at this point, it's got to feel uncomfortable still being in LeBron's shadow. Really does. And again, I give him credit. I mean, the fact that he went through an entire postseason and he played well, but then only just to be cut short in this series, I mean, still. But now you still got to live with being the LeBron shadow at this point after winning a championship. It's not fun. And we know it. And we see it. So I don't really know what you do. I mean, but I just know that there's going to be some moves involved. There's going to be a bunch of talks around in the offseason. So it'll be interesting. And hopefully, I mean, again, we have the NBA draft, and hopefully that should build up some clarity because it's a draft and develop type league that they're pushing for. But who knows how this is going to end up impacting for the Dallas Mavericks moving forward. But I feel like they are a very good team. I'm not taking away the run that they had this year because Luka is one of the top 5 best international stars in the NBA. I mean, amongst Wemby and Giannis and Jokic and multiple others. So I just think at this point, it was a learning curve for Luka, wake-up call for Kyrie, but then the Western Conference, there's going to be some movements. It's probably going to end up getting bigger and better. And there were some teams cooking in the Eastern Conference. Look, the Magic could make a move. The Pacers could make a move. There's multiple teams that can make some moves. But let's see exactly what the offseason is going to bring before we definitely dive into what next season preview is going to be like. All righty, folks, that's going to do it here for me on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Appreciate everybody for joining us up on the show. Shout out to John Frisch and Jess Belmosto for joining us here on the show. Absolutely loved both of their insights, baseball, hockey, so much really good stuff. The show is sponsored by BetUS. When you put $50 or more into your deposit, 200% bonuses with 30 risk-free bets. Check it out all baseball season long because they don't stop there. Arguably the best sports book that they've been doing this for over 30 years. Give BetUS a try. Gambling problem? Call your local number of your state at the 1-800 toll number in your area. That's BetUS, where the game begins, and also SeatGeek. When you go online or you go onto your mobile device to Google Play in the App Store, and before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off of your first purchase of your first ticket, whatever it may be, your next sporting event, your next concert, your next comedy event, whatever it may be. SeatGeek has you covered for the best seat in the house at the most affordable price for you to enjoy and share the memories with your friends, with your family, and even with yourself as well. SeatGeek, don't lose your seat today. $20 off Snake Sports is all you got to use. It's Jake Silva signing off, and we will see you guys on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, guys.